Welcome to the Funding Your Way to a Conference webinar. My name is Katerina, and I'm the SACNAS Student Programs Manager. I'm joined here by the UC Santa Cruz SACNAS chapter members and advisors, Amanda, Tanya, Hedy, CJ, Juliana, Cici. With the help of these experts, we are going to share some tips and advice for the following topics in this webinar. Estimated costs for the SACNAS conference, how to ask your institution, how to prepare your materials, how to save on your own, and next steps, so that you can be proactive, creative, and resourceful about finding funding support for the SACNAS conference or any other conference in the future. So let's start with estimated costs. Keep in mind that all these costs are subject to change depending on dates, airlines, hotels, and other factors. For the best rates, you will want to book as early as you can. You will need to think about saving for 5 main areas. Air travel, costs are going to vary a lot depending on your departure city. Keep checking, don't wait until the last moment. Next would be lodging. Cut down on hotel costs by finding a roommate. Unfortunately, SACNAS does not coordinate roommates, but you can use the conference hashtag or Save for SACNAS to connect with potential roommates on social media, or if you use Facebook, we have created an event for attendees to connect. Registration. Check for conference website for current prices and discounts. Make note of any discount deadlines so that you can save the most on registration. Also, ground transportation. Add this to your budget, but also try to share the rides with your peers to save the cost. And lastly, meals. Even though we provide some meals during the conference, plus food during various receptions, don't rely solely on these meals. Put money aside for food. So now let's jump in. In this first section, we will discuss how to find funding through your institution, including who and how to ask. Amanda, tell us about your experience talking to your department.
It can either be if you're affiliated with a certain college, they might have funds allocated for travel or for funding you for conferences, or your department. So for example, you could approach your department and ask if there's money allocated for students presenting at conferences. I guess my first suggestion would be that you have to emphasize or mention that you have applied to present at a conference, because this will make the process definitely easier. I would personally make sure that you outline all the benefits that you will gain from attending this conference. For example, in the case of attending the SACNAS conference, professional growth, because there are a lot of workshops that are offered to help with your development as a scientist, and also the chance to network with other scientists in your field, and exchange ideas that can also lead to future collaborations. So you want to make sure that you make an outline and practice saying it out loud and in a concise way. Sometimes, what I like to do is to practice in front of a mirror and say everything out loud as if I was saying it to someone. And then hopefully after meeting with someone in your department office and mentioned everything you outlined, you will be asked to submit a detailed proposal to request the funds. If so, make sure that you write all your ideas down, so to create an outline and then formulate a proposal. And I would suggest you ask your mentor, PI, or graduate student to proofread the proposal before submitting.
I have a few more tips. There on our campus at UC Santa Cruz, there are a few services available for grad students. These are, one's called the Graduate Student Association. I learned through another PhD student that he was able to fund his conference travels through this. And what you do is, what Amanda said, is write your proposal, why you want to go to the conference, how the money will benefit you. And I was fortunate last year to get a travel scholarship through them. So that's one service. There's also services for transfer and reentry students. You can look into this at your university. There's also ethnic resource centers that provide scholarships, or your STEM diversity clubs. In addition, it helped to talk to other grad students in my cohort, or even senior grad students, as to how they were able to fund their conference travel. And I got some good advice from them, like, for example, approaching the PI or talking to other graduate student funding sources. And also, if you just go to your university website, you could actually just type in scholarships, and there'll be like a list, even scholarships from your institution. There's scholarships for your field of study, and there's also private scholarships available. So don't be shy to apply for those. I've applied for one so far, and I know there's several more. And some of these scholarships are very happy to fund your travel to go to a conference because they know it's good for growth. And also on your university's career page, you might be able to find assistance preparing any of these documents, such as your CV, personal statement.
Thank you so much, Amanda and Tanya. Hetty, can you share your experience talking to your mentor, advisor, or PI?
This year, I did apply to the travel scholarship, but if I end up not getting the scholarship, then I do plan to reach out to the resources that I've utilized on my campus. One of them being the PI from the lab that I'm a part of, or the program that I correspond to, which is STEM Diversity Programs, which is led by Singsi and Yuli. I think seeking mentors at your school that may have supported you through your academics is really important, because chances are that they may know faculty that may support and encourage students like yourself to seek opportunities that benefit them academically. If, like I said, if you work in a lab or are part of some kind of program, you should definitely talk to your PI or your program coordinator. Several programs and labs may have funds available for students who seek financial support for academic activities, such as attending a conference. If these people don't have funds available, it may be a good idea to let them know about your GoFundMe page or any crowdfunding source that you may have if you have one set up. They have other connections in the science department, around campus, and just other people who have a lot of power and credibility that may want to support you. Chances are that most scientists like seeing students that take initiative to seek their own opportunities in science.
Thank you, Heidi. So now that you have talked to your institution and gotten a sense of where you can request funding support, you'll want to make sure you're prepared when you make that request. This includes doing your research to create a budget and start a proposal letter. Let's start with the budget. Yuli and Sisi, can you tell us about how students can create a simple budget for a conference like SACNAS?
You want to do your homework about the costs and expenses to travel to the conference. So when you request the funds from your department, college, student organization, you have a concrete amount of what areas you need funding for and how much you're asking for. And remember, it's okay to give a range of amounts so that you can tell your funding sources, this is what it may cost now, and this is what it might be at later dates.
So you want to research the 5 major costs that Katerina mentioned earlier, which is the flight, lodging, ground transportation, registration, and also food expenses. Put them into a document when you present them to anyone that you're requesting funding from. And also keep in mind that this is an example of a budget that we have created for SACNAS this year. It's an estimated budget, and the dollar amount can fluctuate depending on when you're booking your flight and also lodging.
Okay, so please keep in mind that this is a budget sample traveling for the students, for example, from Santa Cruz, which the airport would be San Jose to Honolulu. We're estimating for 5 days and 4 nights from October 30th to November 2nd. And so the first and foremost important cost is conference registration. Right now, so when you're creating your budget, you want to make sure that you're including the category you're budgeting for, the category for amount, and it's okay to put in ranges like I mentioned before, and then also to include a couple of notes. If you're trying to promote a certain fundraising by a certain date because you want to let your funding sources know how much savings there is included in there, you can include dates. Like for example, on the notes for registration, you see that after April 30th, the registration cost goes up. And that's a $50 increase, right? So if you're trying to meet certain deadlines to keep your budget low, you want to make sure that you're including those notes there.
And the next big item is probably the airfare. We're looking from San Jose Airport to Honolulu Airport, and right now the cost is about $400, which is on the low end. But if you wait for longer to book your flight, it can go up to $600 flying from the West Coast. If you're flying out from the East Coast, it might cost you a little bit more because it is a longer distance.
And then for ground transportation, you want to start thinking about just transportation costs in general from Santa Cruz, for example, to the airport, which is San Jose. There's several options like Uber, there's shared shuttle ride options. And so you want to keep a range about more or less and budget it in there. So in your ranges, you want to include the lowest, but also make some room for like more expensive and later dates. Because as the conference travel dates near, the costs do go up. And so, for example, $20 is for one-way round trip transportation. For public transportation, this would be like the Metro bus, like shared shuttles, but it's 55 one-way Uber, right? So a round trip to the airport from Santa Cruz to San Jose, and then think about your return as well. You're looking between 40 to 110 depending on the option. And so this is just on your notes, you're putting in that you're checking in with local public transportation services. And these are notes that you're letting your funders know that you're keeping in mind all these costs, that you've done your homework.
And also, of course, if you can have a friend or family member to drop you off at the airport, then those would be zero costs. Basically, you don't have to budget that into your amount. And then also, these are some of the research that we did today. And then if you're using public transportation from Honolulu Airport to the convention center, the public transportation is about $3, which is $6 round trip. But of course, it depends on the time that you're arriving to the airport. If you're arriving to the airport really late at night, you probably will have to either use taxi or Uber or arrange your own airport shuttle. And on the high end, we'll be using Uber, which is $40 one way.
Now that we're going into the most expensive part of the trip, and the part that gets tricky because like Katerina mentioned, you want to find some travel buddies or a group of friends or peers who are going to the conference from your institution so that you can reduce costs. Right now, the hotel from the SACNAS website comes to be about $225 per night, which is including the room and tax. And so that's for 4 nights. It comes out to $900 or $450 per person. This in the notes, that's what you're looking at. And now a cheaper option and the options that are available within the conference area is, for example, Airbnb. The $196 per night that you see on this budget list is budgeted for 4 nights. And the cost is less per person because for all 4 nights, you would be paying $261 per person. This is for a group of 4. It does have 3 beds and there are other options with couches, right? So you want to start doing your homework, start getting a travel group together. So this is kind of the ranges that you want to give your funding sources so that they see that you're doing your homework and doing your research based on costs.
So the next item is food. Like Katerina mentioned earlier, conference registration does include some of the meals. And then you don't have to budget too much. It will just be breakfast during the conference and also food while you're traveling on Wednesday and Sunday. So we budgeted about $30 a day for 5 days will be $150. It should be more than enough.
Something else that we have found that is something just to consider, it's optional, but it's to have an emergency fund, because if anything fluctuates within this time, we have budgeted that for the cost of Honolulu, you should have a little cushion of money of maybe approximately $100. This would be in case there's no cheap options for food right around the area, any hygiene products that you might have forgotten. And this has happened in the past, so thinking about expenses like you forgot shampoo or they didn't provide this at the Airbnb, or your toothbrush, right? We have had cases where students have forgotten to pack a nice button-up shirt, so it might involve a little trip to go to a Ross store near you to find some clothing items so that you feel comfortable when you're presenting. So just keeping in mind that this would be something that maybe you can ask family members for, not necessarily in your funding sources that you're presenting to your departments, but something to actually include in your budget when you're thinking about just accounting for an expense that you might not have foreseen, but that you can be prepared for just in case.
So out of the 5 major area of cost of expense for the conference, the total come out to be about $1,285 on the low end, and it could cost up to $1,800 flying out from the West Coast. The East Coast would be a little bit more because of the distance. And then also another thing that we have thought about is also the travel date. Right now we're looking for 5 days and 4 nights because the conference does end earlier on Saturday. Maybe another option is to fly out after the conference on Saturday. That will save you 1 night of hotel, and also because less conference attendees are flying out on Saturday, maybe the flight will be less expensive. So that's another option.
Thank you. A budget is just one part of your request for funding support. You will also want to prepare a written proposal. Daniela, can you share some tips for a strong proposal letter?
So I think the first thing to keep in mind, first and foremost, and this is something everybody has mentioned, is to really do your homework, do your research, provide a little background about the conference that you're attending. Has your institution been involved before? What has their involvement been? What's the agenda going to look like? What are you looking for to gain when you go? And then just be very specific about how you think the conference is going to help you achieve your goals. What workshops do you want to attend? Who are you looking to meet? Do you have specific companies you want to meet in the exhibit hall? Things like that. And then, of course, as Yuli and Singsi mentioned, definitely include your budget. And that table that she showed, you could just plug that in. And I definitely think having the notes section is really helpful as well, so you can be very transparent about what you're asking for, and just putting it all on the table about as far as ranges and fluctuating dates and prices and stuff like that. Like Amanda mentioned, if you're presenting your research, definitely make sure you include that. Institutions will like to hear that, and that could be a very good selling point. Another tip would definitely be consider asking your mentor or your PI for a letter of support, and that's a chance for them to talk about you and why they think you should be going to this conference, and kind of have another angle from there. Finally, when you think your letter is ready, definitely have somebody read it over for you. There's always things that you miss when you've been reading things over and over. So have a friend, have your mentor, have somebody check it over for spelling, grammar, does it make sense? We do have a proposal letter template on our website, so it kind of goes over those basic components about that you might want to include. So it's a good starting point that you can find on our website, edit it, and make it very specific and customized to you. And then again, just when kind of what Amanda mentioned is when you are meeting, definitely with your department chair or a person who you're requesting funding from, that's a good opportunity to practice your pitch, your oral pitch with a friend in a mirror, and just make sure that you're really, really prepared to speak in front of them. And then I think last but not least, definitely be flexible. Be prepared and know that your entire trip might not be funded, but don't worry, because next we're going to share some ways that you can supplement institutional funding by being creative. So CJ, can you tell us a little bit about putting together a crowdfunding campaign?
Yeah, and here are some ways to fund on your own as a group or as an individual. So some of the ways is creating a crowdfunding campaign. And you can do that. When you do that, you can ask family members for donations, and be sure to explain what they'll be used for, indicate how the donations will fund your trip, and why the SACNAS conference will greatly benefit you. It is important to be clear and detailed, since people would like to know what the funds will be going towards. and how that will greatly affect you and your experience there. Moreover, when posting about your project, avoid repeatedly asking for people for donations. Instead, go to the SACNAS website and discover how the conference had a profound impact on the experiences of students like yourself. So search for stories, search for experiences that others may have posted on social media that can give you an idea of how that was great for them and how they furthered their career with that experience. In addition, utilize social media to the fullest extent. Ask family and friends to share your GoFundMe. Sharing is how you can spread word about your project, and make sure to do it in the early hours of your launch, because that's when people will be more inclined to donate. And also, you may also want to ask people who are mutual acquaintances with your friends or family, because you may have met them in the past and made great impressions on them, and they'll be more likely to donate to your campaign. And after that, you can also fundraise as a group. So as a group at the UCSC SACNAS chapter here, we have done many fundraisers. We have done a Valentine's Day bake sale, along with a fundraiser at Woodstock Pizza, where a portion of the proceeds were donated to the SACNAS chapter. And we also have a day called Giving Day, where it's a day during the academic year where alumni and graduates have donated to certain clubs and organizations around campus. So maybe you can look into if your institution has a Giving Day, or if not, maybe look into starting your own for your SACNAS chapter. Either way, being a group makes it easier to host large fundraising events such as bake or t-shirt sale. Ensure to pick an idea with a large profit margin so you don't have to run the risk of breaking even or even coming out with a loss. Include deals on items so more people will be inclined to purchase them from you. Most importantly, clarify what the fundraiser is for. People like to know where their money is going, and if they do know that's going for a great cause, they'll be more likely to purchase from you. Know that profits will go to, besides hosting a sale, tap into your local business community, search up for businesses that host fundraisers where percent of the proceeds will go to your chapter or group. To have a successful fundraiser, make sure to distribute flyers, to make announcements early, right when your fundraiser is about to launch, and talk to your campus community, your friends. Make sure to spread the word before the date comes around.
It may also be a good idea to reach out to other communities on campus, especially those that are involved with science. These organizations may be willing to help you come up with some ideas, events, or products for fundraising. These clubs may have outside connections as well that may benefit your fundraising.
Thank you, Heidi and CJ. Yulia and Cici, do you have additional tips to share?
So most importantly, I think that as students are getting ready to embark on this journey of going to the SACNAS conference, you have to stay committed. Like, make a commitment to say, I'm going to attend, and so that you get everybody excited to support you. So that's the first and most important thing. I think a couple of things that would be really nice is that if people and peers in your community don't know about your science, that it's time that you start sharing your excitement for science. When you're making these funding requests, even if you don't get accepted to present, show them a printout of your poster and what you've been working on about your science, so that people see the excitement, see the benefits, that it all kind of comes together. Not only that you're going to a conference to benefit professionally, but that you've actually been working in a research project. And regardless of whether the outcome is to go present or not, present that to your funding sources. Present a little poster, present an outline of the science you've done so far. Share your excitement for science, and I think that's a really good way of convincing someone to fund you, right? As you're posting things on your social media, share a picture of you presenting at another symposium. So start to create excitement about what you're excited about, and that's how you'll get people to believe in you and to fund you.
And the last thing is probably you should expect to cover a portion of the cost. If your department or institution cannot cover the whole portion, Daniela gave a great example of how to write a funding proposal, and also CJ gave really good tips on how to utilize social media and also crowdfunding to fund a portion of your budget. But the main goal is that you want to show people and also your organization that you are invested in your own professional development, that you're attending to this conference because there's a greater cause of not only presenting a poster, but also expanding your network, and then also getting more research opportunities. So I think it's important to convey that to the people that you're asking funds from.
So when you're creating your budget list, there should be items that you keep on the budget list, but that you put your name right next to. Like if you're going to be responsible for covering your own ground transportation, that shows a commitment from yourself to come up with your own funds for certain expenses. If you're willing to put down a cost of the hotel, definitely want to tell your funding sources what costs you're willing to commit and how much you're willing to fundraise on your own to come up with certain costs, because that shows that commitment. That shows you're invested in getting ready in your own professional development, and then you get more people excited. So make sure that you have a commitment to yourself. That also is a way of saying, I'm committed to attend to this conference. I'm going to come up with X amount of money for myself to attend, and make your budget out of that.
Thank you so much. Yuli, Cici, Hedy, CJ, Amanda, Tanya, for taking your time to share this valuable information with our SACNistas. To wrap up this webinar, we have 2 things for you to keep in mind as you put all of this advice into action. First, visit SACNAS.org to find tools that you can use to seek funding from your institution, including the template letter Daniela mentioned. And second, follow #SaveForSACNAS on social media, and please use it to ask questions, share advice, and find roommates. Thank you.